So Brian Coester, broad question for you. How do you view the state of housing today?
So I think housing now is starting to make a comeback. You're seeing a lot of builders starting to rebuild or build again. You know, I was just down in Miami visiting clients last week, and there's skyscrapers all over the place. You know, they're building everywhere. And not only that, values are really going up. You're seeing a lot of, in that area, I was meeting with some banks, and you know, you're seeing a lot of foreign nationals come and buy condos, cash, just constantly. The other side of the pond, I was in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, and their rents are through the roof, and their buying is through the roof. They almost can't, you know, things are going off in the market in 10 or 15 days. And that's a good sign. When you start seeing the major cities have that fast market and very attractive market, you start seeing the prices rise. That's going to hit kind of the supporting cities or the sister cities of the sub-markets, which really are the ones that get severely affected by the foreclosures, by, you know, the downturn, have been really affected. So I think it's good. I think there's a lot of questions when it comes to housing outstanding, meaning what is going to happen with student debt, and how is that going to affect the new homes. There was a big question about, you know, the kids now just want to rent and not buy, which I think the rental market has been in such high demand now. You're starting to see a lot of areas where rent is more expensive than buying, and that's normal. So then they'll start buying again. But housing is going to look good. Housing, if they keep rates low for the next, you know, 4 or 5 years, hopefully, they offer a little more creative programs when it comes to financing, I think you'll see housing really, really do well. It's not, you know, if you were looking to get a deal, 2 years ago was the time. But if you're looking for a good home at a reasonable price, that you're definitely not buying in an inflated market, now is definitely a good time.
Well, several people I've spoken to in the industry have expressed concern about affordability. They say that people would like to move up, they would like to get out of renting into home ownership, but for a variety of reasons they can't do it. Either the prices have gotten too high or credit has gotten too tight. Is this a major problem that you've seen across the country?
So I think that's always a problem. And not only the affordability issue, but sometimes there's a little hesitancy that you've just came out of a major crash. A lot of people who do own now don't want to move up because they want to stay safe.
Yeah.
Which is another issue as well. That is a legitimate concern. Builders aren't building new low-cost housing. They're building they take the market, they do a survey, and then they build a little bit better than the best house in that market because they get the highest value. So coming in as a first-time homeowner, you might not be able to get one at that kind of price. When it comes to the qualification and the financing of the home, I think you'll start seeing them loosen up. That I mean, things have been really tight for the last 4 or 5 years, and you're starting to see now some additional programs. I think the CFPB with the QM and non-QM have solidified the ability to get a little more creative than the traditional model, and over time that'll happen. But it's going to be another year, I think, before you start really seeing lenders get more creative and start thinking out of the box than what they traditionally have. But they'll always find a way to make it work.
Yeah. A lot of folks I've spoken to as well have been concerned about jobs or the lack thereof, and they're saying that the somewhat stagnant job market is having a negative impact on housing. How long can this go on?
Well, the job market, that's a big question, and that's almost a presidential type administrative question. There's going to have to be there's a lot of companies wanting to leave the United States. So getting companies and jobs back is a really big issue. we were having a little bit conversation about manufacturing jobs, and those are completely gone for the most part. And there's a lot of technology that's coming into place to where the job market is going to be kind of a constant concern for the foreseeable future of getting well-qualified paying jobs and highly skilled people to work those jobs. I don't have the answer for that. I wish I did. If I did, I'd be running for president.
Well, you've been at the White House for a couple of meetings.
I know.
In your view, is the administration open to the concerns facing the housing market?
So, yeah, I have, and it's interesting because in theory everything's easy, and then actually implementing it is much more difficult. So a lot of times I think the spirit of the White House is in the right place, but then you start putting that into action, and it becomes a little more difficult why they can't do this or can't do that. Yeah, I think that the government is legitimately an issue. That is both good and bad, but I think that's legitimately an issue.
Well, one thing government has sort of kicked down the road has been GSE reform.
Yeah.
Is this something that is going to be handled in the foreseeable future?
So I don't think so. I mean, right now, there's several lawsuits against the government for the GSE oversight because they're basically, the Senate has a profit machine that they control that's just pumping out money every quarter, consistently billions of dollars, and there's no reason, it's been 8 years, right, since they've been.
It's been since 2008, so it's 6 years.
6 years.
So it seems like 8 years.
It seems like 6 years, and there's no reason for them to give it up. And I think that you're gonna be in a fight. I think that if the lawsuits, I think they're gonna win because these people who own a very large percentage of the GSEs want their dividends. I mean, they're making a ton of money now, and the Senate's taking all the money, and you got this profit machine, and to get them to move on that, there's no way.
Brian Coester, the subject is green housing, and you are actually one of the most vocal advocates for the possibility of green housing and also the appraisal industry's responsibility to encourage green housing. Let's talk a bit about that.
So I think green housing is definitely the future, and not just from a let's say global warming is good for the environment, but everybody wins. It's not only good for the environment, it's good for homeowners, it's good for the world as a whole, it's good for the community, it's good for everything, because what you're finding is that green means a lot of different things. Green doesn't necessarily mean just energy efficient homes. You mean energy efficient communities. Green doesn't mean just cheaper bills, cheaper electric. You start fully utilizing the infrastructure and resources available in place. If you look at the traditional suburban model, it's very inefficient and it's very expensive too. I mean, you got a group of homes that are isolated from everything. Even if you made those homes energy efficient, you still have the ability. You have to drive everywhere. You can't. There's no readily accessible amenities. Now what you're starting to see is I think builders have started kind of figured it out, which was the city centers that you're seeing kind of pop up everywhere, where they do mixed use, commercial, residential, with homes, and everything's kind of within walking distance. And then the icing on the cake is when it comes to the actual green homes. I think you're starting to see the tide turn when it comes to builders. You really starting to capture that. I was in a meeting with Ryan Holmes 2 weeks ago in LA, and it's interesting because not only just are they trying to get a little more greener, but some of it's just taking advantage of the existing technologies available with smart homes and homes having a central hub that can control the temperatures of the rooms, which are very somewhat simple things to do, but end up with a much more efficient home. They're not getting to the point where they're installing solar panels on roofs. They're not there yet. And I don't necessarily think they should be. It's not, it's getting there, but it's not quite there.
One thing I never quite understood, the commercial real estate world seems to have been much further ahead of the residential world when it comes to green building. I mean, so many buildings vie for LEED certification. Why have the commercial folks been so much more advanced than the residential folks?
So about 30% of the costs associated with operating a commercial building are in utilities. So if you look at a 50,000 square foot building, the utility bill will be, thousands upon thousands of dollars a month. So making it LEED certified, getting the solar panels and things energy efficient represents a significant savings to them. Residential is not so much the case. Residential, you're dealing with a very simple unit, a very simple bill that represents a fraction of the cost of operating the house, and so it's not as significant. But at the same time, residential follows commercial. So if you look at what commercial is doing, residential is typically 4 to 5 years behind. The LEED certified, that's been big by the government. They've required, if you want a government contractor, you have to be in a LEED certified building. So a lot of that has trickled down, especially in the DC area. But then you look at commercial and residential, the technologies, which is good, commercial's been a good testing ground for technologies to apply to residential, which is interesting because it's the good R&D for the residential use.
Well, where do the appraisers fit in on this? I would think for many of them this is literally a brave new world.
It definitely is, and appraisers have been very apprehensive about it because, it's almost like meeting with an attorney where you come in with this clear, concise, what you're going to do, and then they ask 5 questions and the whole thing, goes through the roof. And that's kind of what appraisers have done. So something like solar panels, which I think everyone would agree to at some level help the home. Well, how do you value that? Because there's a level of they're on a lease. They do damage to the roof at some level.
Yes.
If the roof needs to be replaced, then they need to be moved. There's a level of maintenance. They don't necessarily add value, but they add an indirect, they take away from an indirect cost, a variable indirect cost, which is the utility bills. That's going to vary by homeowner and their use. So how are you going to value that? And that's where something like LEED certified and those types of things really start making a difference, to where if you formalize it, then the appraisers will be very easily able to do it. Some of the limitations have been, the MLS doesn't have easily accessible information on that.
That's right.
Some of it has been that, the traditional models, if you look at, the lease option with 0 down has just been a recent, but traditionally people bought them and they're very expensive to do. So it's hard. I think appraisers are starting to go in that direction. And they're generalizing. If a homeowner makes a energy efficient improvements in a traditional neighborhood that didn't have them, they'll give some type of value to that energy efficiency, what it's saving on utility bills, or some of it is somewhat conceptual, where you don't have a exact way, but it's starting to go in that direction. I'd like to see standardization for homes on energy efficiency, that for residential, that would enable appraisers to categorize homes. And then, if you do get solar panels and all this stuff installed, that you can pay $100 to get your home certified.
Isn't the Appraisal Institute moving in that direction?
They are. They're trying. I think the Appraisal Institute has tried and put a fairly good effort into that and valuing green homes. I know there's legislation in Virginia around requiring appraisers to take their continuing education with and include some type of green course. So it's definitely getting there. It's not 100% there, but it's definitely getting there.
Brian Coester, what does it take to run a successful business?
People ask me that kind of question all the time, and I always think the answer is there's no answer, right? There's everybody's trying to figure it out, and that's whether you're somebody just getting started and opening up a bakery in downtown, or if you're Apple and Samsung battling out for mobile phone, or if you're GM and Ford competing for the global car owners market. Everybody's trying to figure it out, and so I guess the key would be is to stay curious and stay actively trying to learn, figure it out, and stay plugged in. I always, when people ask me, like, hey, can you meet with me? And I typically do. And there's a lot of assumptions. And so there's an assumption that you're reading, every book there is out there on business and strategy and getting better. There's an assumption that you're working as hard as you can every day and trying to do the best you can every day. And there's an assumption that you're trying to build and follow good business practices. All of that is readily available at any library for free. And then it comes down to just really trying over and over and over again, of staying very active, staying plugged into the industry, plugged into the community, and really, I would say, above all that, is taking your business and making it more about meaning than it is just about making money. The money thing is something I think corporate America has gotten a really bad name for over the last 20 years, where everything's stock prices, everything's been this. I think you're starting to see a shift of, the Starbucks and some of the Whole Foods stuff and a lot of the corporations that do huge charity stuff, of taking a business and not making it just about making money, but about really providing a lot of value to the community, a lot of value to the world, and really...
Well, you're practicing what you preach, because you have an endeavor called Comfort Cases.
Yes, yeah.
For those for the viewers here who don't know about it, what's Comfort Cases about?
So Rob Shear, our senior vice president, and I got together, and we've done a variety of toy drives and things like that over the past several years. And we decided, we can probably do this a little bit better on our own, which I think a lot of companies are in a really good position to do that. You'd be surprised. I mean, with the organization, with technology teams and operations managers and employees and HR people, you're in a really good position to run a very effective charity organization for free, as opposed to just donating the money. And so, what we decided was that, everyone does a toy drive. Everyone gives toys to kids, but there's a huge segment of the market of kids that really nobody knows about, and those are the kids in the foster care system. So there's about 300,000 kids every year put into the foster care system. Rob, who adopted 4 kids out of the foster care system and was a foster kid himself, really knew what they went through. And what Comfort Cases does is provides the basic necessities that they need as they enter the system. So they don't get things like a toothbrush. They don't get things like toothpaste. They don't get things like a comb or deodorant or soap or towels or a coloring book. So you have a kid who's 5 years old who just got put in the foster care system, and he gets nothing. And he gets used clothes and used everything. And so what Comfort Cases does is provide them a nice suitcase, because traditionally they carry around a trash bag with their clothes. A nice suitcase full of the basic necessities that they need. And all of that is supported by Coester. So we have a lot of volunteers, but at the same time, all the employees volunteer. And it's a really good, not only from providing a very good service to the community, but also helps out, the morale of the company. I mean, it's a miracle for the morale of the company. I mean, we did something like 3,000 cases this year, and then we did 1,000 backpacks for back to school. So you think about the kids who don't have back to school supplies. It's all over our office.
Well, for the company itself, a lot of people just look at work as a chore, as labor. So what you're doing is actually, you're taking the business world, but you're introducing your employees to a wider world too, and getting them involved in something as important as helping out foster kids.
Yeah, and I think everyone in their heart wants to volunteer, right? I think everyone does. I mean, you would hope so, right? At some level. And then what happens is you get kind of so caught up in yourself. And you get so caught up in your problems and your issues that you forget about that, and you just kind of go mosey on through life, and just completely. It's like it's like taking a vitamin. Like it's almost as easy not to do as it is to do. And so by formalizing it and putting it within the organization, holding events at our office, and inviting our employees out to events, it really does. And you see a lot of engagement. And then to where working within an organization is not just about. It's not just about having a job. It's really be a part of a higher purpose. And there's a lot of companies that have done that. I mean, there's a lot of good companies that have done that. And I think you'll see that more. I think you're starting, I hope so, corporate America starting to take a bigger play within the community and not just, care about making money.
Yeah. Well, you actually have a very good reputation in the industry for work such as what you're doing with comfort cases. I think a lot of people, not just in mortgage banking, but in business as a whole, they forget about the importance of reputation. As you say, they're so caught up in themselves, they don't realize that other people are watching and taking notes.
Probably true. And sometimes I get bad with that. People are watching and taking notes. But I would say that is a big thing. And one of the things that I always kind of ask is, and Rob talk about this, is what do we want to be known for? And that's a big thing. In the idea that, obviously you want to be known for the most positive things.
Yes.
But how many people are really doing those positive things all the time? And, everyone has their things they aren't good at. But what we try to do is set up a organization that really not only serves these clients, but serves the community, and does a higher purpose. It's about more than just the basic appraisal. And so far, it's worked.
How many people do you currently have working for you?
So about 60, 65, somewhere around there.
And if, let's say I wanted to apply for a job at your company, what are you looking for in a potential employee?
So we're looking for somebody who can grow into another position. And so we don't like hiring, people that are just going to be right there forever. So, if you're going to come in and be in charge of our marketing, eventually we want you to be in charge of events and event planning, and we want to host events all across the country. And, we want to make it so that you can do more than what you've done. And everybody who's stuck around within the company for several years has done that, where they start off here and then they end up there. And so we're looking for people who definitely want to grow, who want to be held accountable, who want to work within a very changing organization, and that want to have a good career in the mortgage industry. I mean, we pay half of the insurance for the employees. We pay towards their form. We give good benefits, and we take care of them. So.
Are you hiring?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Senior editor.
Yeah. Brian Coester, thank you very much.
The Housing Show airs every Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time and can be viewed on MortgageNewsNetwork.com.
Hello, this is David Coester for the Mortgage News Network. Today, nearly 90 million people will go online and watch a video. This explains why our weekly online shows have been such a hit. Custom-produced videos are simply the most powerful way of telling a business story. National Mortgage Professional Magazine gave rise to Mortgage News Network. Our editors and producers have been telling the stories of this industry for decades. To learn more about sponsorship opportunities that are available And to learn about the video services we provide, request a media kit. You can do so by sending an email to info@mortgagenewsnetwork.com or pick up the phone and call Beverly Bolnick at area code 516-409-5555, extension 4. And remember, while others cover the world, we cover yours.
This is Mortgage News Network.